All right, welcome back. We're also following breaking news on former President Trump. The New York Times is reporting that Trump plotted with a Justice Department lawyer to oust acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen in an attempt to undo Georgia's election results. The Times report says Justice leadership threatened a mass resignation in protest if then President Trump went ahead with that plan. This stunning development comes as the Senate prepares to hold a second impeachment trial for Trump in early February. Shan is a former federal prosecutor. Shan, so good to see you. So how do you see this development potentially impacting this impeachment trial?
Well, it certainly could be grounds for another impeachment, but given that the impeachment process is not so bound by rules of evidence, it's easier to bring in a lot of evidence. So certainly this could also be evidence of his intent to undermine the election and therefore leads to why he's inciting the riot. There's also, of course, a lot of separate criminal liability here as well for both the president as well as the DOJ official Clark and possibly other DOJ officials and even leading up to the White House counsel's office.
And you see Justice Department officials testifying?
I think so, Fred. If the prosecutors play their cards right here, they're going to bring a conspiracy charge, and that gives them very powerful leverage to compel the testimony because the conspiracy charge is an offense all by itself, even if you don't prove the election interference. And of course, they're going to argue executive privilege and legal privilege, and I think that Clark has already raised that. But I don't think that's ultimately going to be successful. I mean, they'll litigate it, but telling the president that you want to get rid of the acting AG to install yourself, that's not legal advice. That's a political power play.
Oh, gosh. And that's on the whole issue of trying to overturn, the Georgia, elections. And then you've got the other issue that precipitated this impeachment, effort, which is the inciting a riot. And then you have some senators and some other lawmakers who are also being accused of helping to participate in this inciting of a riot. How do you see the trial not involving some of the lawmakers as witnesses? Could it possibly happen without them being called as witnesses too?
It could happen without them being called as witnesses. It's really a fascinating scenario. We're in completely uncharted territory. I mean, arguably, you could, if it reached up to the senators themselves, some of them might have to be recused from being jurors in the Senate trial. But certainly there's been much talk of members of Congress and the representatives, House of Representatives, being possibly involved. And we could well see them being called as witnesses. I'm sure they won't be happy about that. They may raise a number of obstacles to that, but you might have the very unusual sight in a Senate trial where you have House of Representative members having to testify.
And if there's no conviction in this impeachment trial, this whole idea that some Democrats have been floating, which is the use of the 14th Amendment to block the president from ever holding office again, what would be the sequence of events for that?
Well, that would be a separate plan of attack that they would have to move under the 14th Amendment. If they were to convict him, they can also disqualify him with only a majority, but they have to convict him first. So I think the sequence of events will have to be first to deal with the impeachment trial itself. And if that's successful, they can seek to remove him under the impeachment clause. If it's not, then they'll have to contemplate a new process, a separate one, to try to remove him under the 14th Amendment, which, again, uncharted territory, certainly never been exercised upon a president.
Boy, are we all learning a lot, aren't we? Every day. Well, you have all the answers. I'm learning a lot. Let me put it that way. Thanks to you and others. Shan, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Fred.